It's a modern-day David and Goliath story in the fight for freedom and keeping a commitment to God. Welcome to Freedom Alive. High school football coach Joe Kennedy took a knee and quietly prayed for 15 to 20 seconds by himself on the 50-yard line of the football field after every game in Bremerton, Washington. Then overnight, this average Joe found himself in a legal battle that took him all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Joe Kennedy joins us on this episode to share his story and how he defended his religious freedom and for the rights of all Americans. I'm blessed to again be joined by co-host Matt Staver from Liberty Counsel. And Matt, do citizens give up religious freedoms when they work for the government?
They certainly don't. And this case clearly is an illustration of that very point. Joe Kennedy was an individual. He has protections of the First Amendment, whether he is on the football field or off the football field. And in this particular case, it's after the game. And he's kneeling down. If he were kneeling down for one purpose that's maybe secular, the school probably wouldn't have a problem with it. If he's kneeling down to protest, for example, the national anthem or something like that, I imagine they would be okay with that. But if the purpose of his silent prayer, kneeling by himself, is to give glory and thanks to God and to pray to God, then the Bremerton School District said you can't do that. And they took the incredible stance that they fired him. And little did they know that that particular action would lead this case all the way to the United States Supreme Court.
It was an amazing case or situation to watch from a distance, and then to watch it develop and make it to the Supreme Court. That was just unbelievable. It's an amazing story. We can't wait to bring it to you, but our Freedom Alert is next.
These peaceful pro-life protesters are now free. President Donald Trump signed full pardons for 23 peaceful pro-life advocates who had been unjustly prosecuted, convicted, and imprisoned under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, or FACE. Their arrest and charges stem from different events, including peaceful protest in Washington, D.C., New York, Tennessee, and Michigan. In October 2020, 10 of the advocates were arrested for peacefully protesting at a Washington, D.C. late-term abortion facility after the remains of 5 babies were found in its garbage. The oldest protester is an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor who was arrested and charged for protesting at abortion facilities in Michigan and Tennessee. These pardons reverse a grave travesty of justice. As President Donald Trump signed the executive order, he said, "They should not have been prosecuted. This is a great honor to sign this."
Up next, Matt's interview with Joe Kennedy.
I'm looking forward to our interview with Coach Joe Kennedy, and thank you for joining us on Freedom Alive.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
It's amazing. Did you ever think you would be before the United States Supreme Court with your name, Kennedy versus Bremerton School District?
Not in a million years. That's only a God story. There's no other way it could happen.
We want to get to that story a little bit later in the program because of the impact of that case, but we want to first find out how everything all began. Take us back to the very beginning, even before you were a coach.
Well, before I was a coach, I was one of those real troubled youths. I was in and out of group homes, foster homes, and even looking back, I was not wanted as a child in birth. I was given up for adoption. So I had a lot of strikes against me kind of going through life. I acted out. I was very angry. I was mad, and I had no idea where to put that. So I was a fighter. I fought. Got kicked out of 12 different schools, in and out of everywhere, and I thought eventually I needed to do something with my life, or, I didn't like the alternative. So Marine Corps kind of called my life then.
So you were kicked out of 12 different schools?
Yeah.
You didn't just move from 12 different schools. You got kicked out of 12 different schools?
Yeah. First time I was expelled, I was in 3rd grade.
Wow. So how did you find a school that you were able to actually land in and finish your high school education?
Well, the Marine Corps told me that I needed a high school diploma to graduate. So
you straightened up?
I straightened up. I went to summer school and after schools, and just tried to make up credits as much as I could. And I graduated with a .33 grade point average and just squeaked by with the public school system.
So what did you do in the United States Marines? Did that impact your life?
Absolutely. It was the first time that I belonged to something that was more than myself. I felt like I was part of a team. Growing up and being alone and angry, I never had anybody I could rely on. And the family with Marines is just incredible. First thing I learned was obviously discipline, which I needed desperately. So discipline and team building, leadership, all those things were just something that was a natural calling for me, and it saved my life. And
so how did you become a Christian through this process? Was it before the Marines or after the Marines?
Really, it was after the Marines. Right when I was getting ready to retire, I met my childhood sweetheart, and we got married, but we weren't equally yoked. So I was an atheist. I just really thought the whole idea of God was a big joke. I mean, when you go to combat and you see some of the worst things in the world, you sit there and think, there's no way there could be a God. So, yeah, God finally showed up when he wanted my attention.
So you're out of the Marines and you're an atheist, and now you meet a woman who becomes eventually your wife.
Right. She was a good church girl. A lot of baggage she went through. Abused as a child. She was in a very abusive relationship, married to a guy. And I didn't know how to get through to her. And I already failed at other marriages. And as a father, I really wanted this one to work. And I was failing so bad, I finally ended up going to church, and that's really where it all started, is that I was failing, and I threw myself onto the altar and said, God, if you give me my wife, I'll give you my life.
And then how after that, then you gave your life to the Lord, you end up marrying your wife, and how do you get from that to coaching?
That's the weirdest part. It was almost overnight. I was approached by the high school athletic director, and just out of the blue, I'm out on a run one day, and a guy pulls up alongside and asks if I was interested in coaching.
Amazing. So then that's when you became a high school football coach. Just
Right.
kind of learned the ropes from the ground up.
Yeah. Well, the best part about it was that they offered me the job, and I finally went to the job interview, and I saw the movie Facing the Giants on that weekend.
Yeah.
And it was
It's a very inspiring movie.
Yeah, just felt like the Lord really was calling me to do this. So kind of opened my eyes to it, and I said, I'm all in, God. And that's where it started from, was my simple prayer on my living room floor after watching the movie and saying, God, I'm all in. I'll give you the glory.
I imagine, when you come from a dysfunctional background like this, being kicked out of 12 schools, then you find some discipline and some structure in the United States Marines. Seeing this Facing the Giants movie was kind of probably like a wake-up call that you might be able to mentor other young men.
Right, and that's where I feel that my calling was. And you hear about people with their callings, and I never really understood what that meant until I heard God's calling for me to help these young men. These kids are doing the same thing that I was doing, in trouble same kind of things I was in, and nobody out there to look out for them. And that was my calling, is to help them become better young men.
So to be a football coach, you felt that was a calling so that you could actually pour your life into these young men.
Absolutely.
Give them something that you did not get when you were growing up.
That's exactly it.
So you start now, you're a football coach in Bremerton. How did it go? How long did it last before you got into this issue of the prayer?
I was in my 8th year. Everything was going great. I had a great relationship with my team, with my coaches, everybody at the high school, the administration. A small community, about 30,000 people, military town, blue collar. And I grew up with these guys. Our kids are growing up together. They're going to high school and grade school together. So we're pretty close in our community. And everything I thought was going just wonderful. Here I am, this Christian, and I'm living for the Lord, and then boom, this comes out of the blue. So
this is Bremerton School District in Washington, the state of Washington. And so now at the end of the game, you actually at some point in your high school career coaching decided that you would go out on the football field and that you would take one knee. Tell us how that began, how it originated, what happened, and then how it morphed into the time where you actually got terminated for doing so. Right. Well, it goes back to the Facing the Giants, when I felt that conviction to
come and serve the Lord. And in the movie, he said he was going to dedicate the game, and no matter win or lose. And that's exactly, I'm not very original. I stole it right from there. And that was my covenant with God, is I was just going to give him thanks after every game, win or lose, right there on the battlefield.
So then did you do that at the very beginning?
Very beginning. I did that from we had 2 games a week on varsity and junior varsity, and I prayed every single one.
So you coached both?
Yes, I did.
Single coach for both varsity and junior varsity?
No, thank God but we had a whole coaching staff that helped out with everything.
But you would be at 2 games a week?
Yes, sir.
Junior varsity and varsity. And at the end of the game, then you would go out on the field on the 50-yard line and take a knee.
Right. You know, when 2 teams come together, you see it after every game. They shake hands. We meet with the coaches. And since we're on the 50-yard line, just take a knee right there, face the scoreboard. And God, that was awesome. And
no matter whether you win or lose.
Yeah. There were some tough losses.
So you're out there on the field, though. You take a knee. What happens to the other football players on both sides?
At first, they didn't know what was going on. I don't know. It must have been months into it before some of the kids came up and said, "Coach, what are you doing out there after the game?" And I said, "I'm just thanking God for what you guys did out there and being part of it." They want to know if they could join. And I said, "Well, yeah. I mean, this is a free country. This is America. Of course you can." So it started out with just 3 kids, and each year it grew and grew. And then over the years, they wanted to know if the opposing team could join us. And I was like, "Hey, this is your team." They invited the other team out there. So in our 8th year, we had every single school in our district all out there on the 50-yard line praying.
So both your team and the opposing team at the end of the game would come out there and take a knee?
Win or lose, yeah.
Win or lose. That's incredible.
Awesome sportsmanship. Seeing God work in there.
I imagine it was a great sight. I mean, you don't see that at many football games, and it's a great sight, not only just to thank God, but the sportsmanship and the camaraderie that you're developing, and the ability for them to work together, whether they win or lose, that it's actually a game.
Right. Especially after some of the heated games, you have your biggest rivals, and you know, there's tussles and fights in there, and words are said, but afterwards, everybody interlacing arms and just taking a knee and being thankful. It's just an awesome moment.
So this goes on for 8 years. You're out there, and after a few months, now you have some team members, players join you, then the whole team, then eventually the other team, and this goes on for years. And there's no problem. So what happened?
Well, like in anything, if you see something, you say something, right?
Yeah.
One of the administrators from another school district saw what we were doing after this real tough game it was a loss on our side, but really tough game. And they saw us come together, and the administrator thought that was so awesome, he felt compelled to call our principal. He called our principal and said, "I just want to tell you what your football program is doing is awesome." So this all stemmed from a compliment.
He wasn't complaining.
Not complaining.
He's complimenting you and talking to your principal.
Yes.
So what does your principal do?
Well, he wanted to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. The school does have a policy. You cannot encourage nor discourage kids in prayer. And we wanted to make sure we were following that. And, you know, every administrator is worried about optics of everything.
Some kind of suit,
So they started an investigation to make sure we were doing everything. Everybody overreacted. Principal went to the athletic director to the coaches to me. By the time it gets to me, everybody's in a tizzy, and it's, you better not pray or you're going to get fired.
And they're afraid of a lawsuit, I guess.
That's exactly what it was.
Did the school ever get a threatening letter?
They did after it became public. They warned me not to pray, and I thought, this is just ridiculous.
I mean, obviously it was already public. People could see it happening.
Oh, for 8 years, yeah.
Yeah,
it was no big deal. But when they started getting all squishy about it, that's when I made a post after one of the games. Then when they said, "You better not be praying," and they gave me that look of, they're going to fire you over this, the athletic director. And so I just did one post on Facebook or Instagram, and boom, it went viral overnight. I think I just got fired for praying, and it was across the nation instantly.
So did they tell you to stop praying with the kids then? And
At first, we thought we would be able to work everything out, as long as it didn't interfere. And when I wasn't telling kids they had to come out, you know, we went through all the normal standard things of diplomacy, I would say. Then after that, they said, well, now they started getting the blowback from some of the outside influences and started getting letters. That's when they told me to stop praying with the kids. And I obliged. I said, well, it's unfortunate, but I mean, this is your school, your rules. I just want to coach football. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get in anybody's trouble.
So you were told stop praying with the kids, and did you then tell the football players you can't come out there and pray with me anymore?
So that was the other half of it, where you cannot encourage nor discourage kids. Well, since I have such a great relationship with them, I sat there and I explained to them
that they said,
as young men, I explained the situation to them, and I asked that they would respect my fight. And they did. They absolutely did.
So did you go out there then by yourself?
I did.
Without the football players joining you?
Right. But the opposing team came out, and the school did not know what to do with that.
So your team's on the sideline because they've been told to respect what was going on in the school. But the opposing team didn't have that constraint. Right. They're coming out there and praying with you.
Right. Then the school flips out. Then their lawyers say, no, we're just going to have you eliminate prayer altogether. We'll give you a place where nobody can see you, like I'm committing some kind of a crime and I have to go hide and do this.
But if you wanted to kneel down and protest the national anthem, or if you wanted to kneel down just because you wanted to rest, or if you wanted to kneel down and think about where you're going to order the pizza for the gang after the game,
tie my shoe, any number of things.
No problem with that.
Right.
But you're kneeling down and you're not saying a prayer out loud. You're having a silent prayer. And the reason why you're kneeling down is to pray. And this is kind of a picture on your book, Average Joe.
Yeah. One
man's faith in the fight to change a nation, where you're just kneeling down and you're having your one hand on the football. If the purpose of doing that was to have a silent prayer to God, that's a problem, according to the school.
According to the school district, it was.
So then the lawsuit started.
Yeah, I didn't want that to happen because these people really are my friends. My wife works for the school district. We have kids in the school. So we really didn't want to have this fight. But their lawyers were pretty adamant. They said I needed to choose between my faith and my job. And they gave me a letter of direction, said that I would be put on suspension until I complied with the school district's policy or directive to not pray in public. And that's where the legal matters started.
So you went up to the Supreme Court once, and then the Supreme Court didn't take the case, but then it came back down, got some more litigation, and went up to the Supreme Court a second time, and the Supreme Court took the case and made a decision in 2022. How was it how were you when you realized, particularly for the second time, that the Supreme Court has decided to take your case and review the matter?
There was a lot of mixed emotions there. I was very concerned with what the lower courts ruled, the way that they ruled that any display of religion in a public square could get you terminated. That would have been on my watch. And the only place I had to go was to the Supreme Court, because all the other, I don't know if they're liberal judges or whatever the lower judges and courts do.
Because you lost on the lower courts.
Oh, 7 times we lost in a row, yeah.
You lost time and time again. Through that process, how did you feel when you lost, and especially your wife, because she's along this ride with you as well?
Right. I was defeated so many times. I didn't want to continue the fight, but God He made me a fighter, and I knew that this was the right thing to do. I struggled as a Christian. What do? Do I give in? It would have been the easy thing to do for everybody, especially for my family and my coworkers and my team. But there was something about it as an American and as a Marine, that somebody telling me that you can't express your faith in public, that was just wrong in my book, and I had to stand on that.
You know, it's a difficult thing, you know, when you go to life and you have this unexpected turn of events in which it's devastating to you and you frankly lose. This is a case, and we also had a case coming up at the same time. We lost 4 times and went to the Supreme Court with Shurtleff versus City of Boston. And the City of Boston used the same case against us that they used against you, Lemon versus Kurtzman,
yeah.
From a 1971 decision. So you lost 7 times?
7 times.
We lost 4 times? And guess what happened? Lemon versus Kurtzman is no longer the law of the land anymore. It was overturned by the Supreme Court.
Which I don't think people even know what lemon was. I didn't know what lemon was when they told me what lemon was. I was only asking for my job and to be able to pray after a football game. I didn't know anything about any Supreme Court cases.
Well, the crazy thing is that that decision was used, this 1971 activist decision from the United States Supreme Court called Lemon versus Kurtzman. It really distorted the First Amendment, free speech, free exercise of religion, and establishment clause. And it had been used as a wrecking ball against you, against us, against others. So that in your case, if the purpose of your kneeling down like this, if you're kneeling down like this, and if it's a religious purpose, particularly Christian purpose, then they said, no, that's not permissible. But if it's a secular purpose, if you're protesting something or thinking something or just resting, it's okay.
About 7,000 cases, I think, over the past 50 years.
Yeah. So it depends upon your perception of it. So if the reason why you're doing this is because it's motivated by religion, oh, it's banned, you're going to be fired. But if you want to do it for some other non-religious reason, it's okay.
Yeah.
If the reason you want to raise this flag and you think the flag is a Christian flag, no. But if you think the same flag, exact same symbol, exact same position is secular, call it a Camp Constitution flag, it's okay. Christian flag? No. Kneeling for prayer? No. Kneeling for something secular? Okay. That's the absurdity of what happened, and that's why you lost 7 times.
Right. But it was all the more reason why somebody needed to stand up, because that is just crazy. I am really thinking about that. Telling somebody that you can't take 15 seconds thanking God after a football game, that's just crazy in my mind.
But the amazing thing is, I mean, it's easy now for you to be here having written this book, Average Joe. You now have a movie out called Average Joe on your story, your life, this case that goes up to the Supreme Court, the impact of Kennedy versus Bremerton School District. Your name is in that case. It's easier now, in retrospect, for you to sit here and talk about that. It's easier for people to hear that story, I would think, to hear what the result is. But how many years did this take? From the time that you started getting the pushback from the school until the time of June of 2022 when the Supreme Court decided your case.
It took me 9 years to get back on the football field.
9 years with your life in a turmoil, right?
Absolutely.
But how did you deal with that?
Really, it had to do first with God, because I had nothing else. There was nowhere else to turn. My wife and I, our marriage seemed to be crumbling because of her position with the school district. Our kids, our family, our environment, everything was in such turmoil. Only place I had to go was to my knee and just trust in what God did. God came in and saved us. And when He was the center of everything, and my wife understood that God was the center of this, it wasn't about anything else except for God, then we both wrapped our cords around Him, and we were stronger than ever.
Joe, you know, and for those people that are watching, you could have taken the easy route. You could still be coaching there at Bremerton School District, not following the Lord's will, compromising your values, avoiding the controversy. You wouldn't have a U.S. Supreme Court decision. You wouldn't have a book. You wouldn't have a movie. And it's not just that. You wouldn't have the legacy of overturning this 51-year-old decision called Lemon versus Kurtzman that will change the landscape for generations to come. You could have made that choice, and it's like a Back to the Future moment. You have 2 different options, and we all have that. You could have chosen the easy route, and nothing would have happened of significant consequence.
And there was many times that I wanted to go. I was weak in the flesh. I really wanted to give up so many times, but I just knew it was the right thing to do. Imagine what kind of coach, husband, father I would be if I would have just gave in because it was easier to do that.
Yeah.
That goes against everything the Marine Corps has instilled in me, and what I'm trying to teach these young men to do what is right always.
So talk to the people here. What are some of the lessons you learned? How would you encourage people? They all have different issues that they're dealing with, but they all have something that's going to come to them and they have a decision to make.
Right. And I think it's pretty simple. Of number one, we always want to do what's right. And I have a kind of a Bible verse that I go by, and since I'm not a huge Bible scholar, it's 2 Timothy 4:7. It's fight the good fight, finish the race, and remain faithful. Nowhere in there does it say that we have to win, because God's got that victory. Only thing we need to do is just show up. If we do what is right, we can have the trust and the faith in God that He will do exactly what He's supposed to do. And if we do that, life is so much easier.
Well, thank you, Coach Joe Kennedy. Average Joe is the name of the book, and I encourage you to find this. I guess they can get this on Amazon or other places as well. But also, you have a movie out, and it's also called the same name, Average Joe. And it's a story of your background, goes over more detail of what your background that ultimately prepared you. Coming from a broken background, it's amazing how God uses people that are, I would call, unlikely disciples. People that we might not select. Somebody who's come from a broken, dysfunctional background to actually change a nation. And the difference between that and just being mediocre or just not even knowing who you are is a decision for the Lord, and one in which you're willing to pay the price.
Right. And I think that's a perfect name for his Average Joe, because if God can use an average guy like me, imagine what He could do with everybody else.
Well said. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, brother.
Matt, I am amazed at the improbable nature of really how God works. And in this case, takes a young man who was literally kicked out of school 12 times as early
as I've met anybody who's been kicked out of school
in third grade. In third grade. An atheist.
I thought I was bad with so many detentions. I was an angel compared to that.
Yeah, and turns him over decades into a warrior that when he has his opportunity or his decision to make to stand for Christ, he stands up as an absolute warrior for God.
Yeah.
Right? How amazing.
It's amazing.
You know, God's ways.
Never give up on anybody, no matter what they look like, no matter what their background is. Never give up, because with God all things are possible. And if God can use somebody like Joe Kennedy to accomplish what has been accomplished in his life, He can use anybody.
Another story of God being in the transformation business, and I just want to remind those of you at home, family members, friends, whoever that in your life that you are praying for. I know I do the same thing, that we pray and pray and pray. Never, ever, ever quit. Never give up. God is in the transformation business. He changes hearts. Nothing is impossible for Him. He is constantly equipping people to do His work for Him down the road in circumstances that He places them in. It's just remarkable. In closing, remember 1 Corinthians 15, verse 58, which says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, stand firm. Let nothing move you. Always give yourself fully to the work of the Lord, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." Our freedom is a gift from our Creator. We must never forget that and always protect it. So join us here next time, where you'll hear victories as well as ways you can stand up for your priceless freedom. Join us again for Freedom Alive.